Hey guys, welcome back. In this episode of Restoring My Half-Baked Tractor, I'm getting to finally prep and paint all of the orange pieces on my tractor. This is a huge step. I'm really excited for this. Here's a really quick before picture so you can see what all of these panels look like. There's a lot of rust that I need to take off of here, but first we're going to start removing all of the stickers on these orange pieces. I don't want to have to tape over them, and most of these are fairly cheap, so I can just replace them. So I'm going to take those off and then use some Goo Gone and make sure all of the adhesive that is left behind is completely removed before I start sanding and prepping this panel. Next, I'm going to take some sandpaper and lightly sand each of these pieces. This hood right here is really faded, so I want to get all of the clear coat and all the chalky paint off of this so that I have a nice surface for the new paint to bond with. So I'll keep working on this until all of the gloss is removed and all of the chalky paint is also taken off and it has a consistent matte finish over the entire piece. Next, I'll also sand down all of the plastic pieces. This logo emblem on the front is really faded, doesn't look very good. I'm gonna go ahead and paint this. So sanded it down, got off all of the chalky plastic that's there. And then I'll do the same for the front grille cover. This is also plastic, so I need to scuff up the surface and make sure everything's ready for paint. After everything's sanded down, I'm going to go ahead and add some tape over top of this metal grill. I'm going to be painting that black later, so I don't want any of the orange paint getting on that. Then I'll move on to sanding down the steps on either side of the tractor. One side I left on it because it was a little more complicated to take off. I'll just paint it in place. So I'm lightly sanding this again just to remove that clear coat. Then I'll move on to the fenders. These got most of the heat from the fire and are pretty damaged as far as the rust and the paint goes. There's not going to be much paint left on this because they got so hot, just baked the paint right off. Then this sat out in the weather for quite a while, so there is a bit of a rust layer over top of this. Thankfully it didn't pit very much, so I'm able to remove all of the rust mostly with just a drill and a wire brush. So I'll go over that, clean it up really well, and then I'll come back with an orbital sander and lightly sand this down, getting any areas where the wire brush didn't quite get, and also smooth out the transition from the metal to the paint and try to get a nice even surface there. Then I'll sand down the two pieces that are still on the tractor that I didn't remove, and that's the cover over top of the fuel tank and then the right step. So I'm going to sand those down, remove any stickers that were there, and scuff up the surface. This section right here got a little bit of heat, but it didn't bake all the way through. It just baked the orange layer, so I'll sand that down, and then this is ready to start painting. Then the last two pieces are the two panels on either side of the engine. This one's going to be pretty simple, just a light sanding. I took off the plastic vents on either side. It will make painting a lot easier, and those are pretty simple to remove anyways. After sanding everything, I'm going to wipe this all down with a rag and acetone. This will clean the surface, make sure no dust is left behind, but also it will remove any oil that could prevent the paint from bonding with the surface. Because the majority of the fenders are just exposed metal because of the heat baked off all of the paint, I'm going to start with a coat of primer over top of these fenders, covering up all of the exposed metal to help the paint bond with the fender. And then just to be safe, I'm also going to be priming all of the plastic parts. The primer I'm using says it's both for metal and plastic, so we'll see how that does. For the paint today, I'm going to be using the Rust-Oleum Kubota Orange Farm and Implement Tractor Paint. This isn't the exact match to Kubota, I'm sure there's a slight difference, but I have used this before and it worked really well, and you can hardly tell a difference between the paint. I'm also painting the entire tractor, so that's not even going to be a problem if there is a slight difference at all. I'll be spraying this paint onto each of the panels, so I've added in some reducer to thin that down to get a good consistency, and then I'll mix it in really well, and in just a second I'll show you the consistency of that and what it looks like. You can check the paint to see if it's the right thickness by using a stir stick, dipping it in the paint. What you're looking for is it to run off of the stir stick and not cling to it like a thick oil. You want it to be runny enough so that all of the excess paint quickly drips off of the stir stick and only leaves a thin layer on it. Now I'm going to be adding in hardener into the paint and mixing that in. This will help the paint dry faster, and once it's fully dried, it will have a harder texture and be more durable, and it even says that it helps the paint have a glossier, smoother finish overall. Once the hardener's added, you're on sort of a timer. You don't want that to start activating or let that paint sit a while. So I've got a small container here with a lid. I've mixed it in. I can set that to the side and use that to refill my sprayer as I need to. I'm going to test out the sprayer, make sure my pattern's good on a piece of cardboard, and then I'm just going to go to town painting each of these. And the thing I'm focused on right now is making sure that I don't have any drips in the paint. I'm doing a nice thin layer, making sure it covers, but you don't want to stay in one place for very long with the sprayer. You want to keep moving and not stop that motion. Once that's dried, I'm going to come back for a second coat, and for some reason I forgot my mask this time. I had it on for the first coat. Definitely recommend wearing a mask with this. You can see all of the vapors of the paint in the air. That's not great for you, so don't do what I did. In just a minute, I'm going to move the tractor outside and paint the two panels that are still on the tractor, but first I need to tape off everything I do not want orange overspray on. I'll use plastic to cover the large areas and some paper tape to seal it off along the panels where I'm going to be painting. Now it'll be the same deal here. I'm going to wipe everything down with acetone and a rag, and then I'm just going to jump straight into painting. I know I've got a little bit of exposed metal on the fuel tank cover, but that shouldn't be much of an issue here, and after 2 or 3 coats of paint, this will be good to go as well. A few of these pieces won't need coats of paint on the underside, and so I'll remove those really quick, then I'll flip the rest over, then I'll start 2 more coats of paint on the underside. to add a little more protection on this paint job, I'm adding a clear coat over top. And I actually wouldn't really recommend this product. I'm sure it might be great, but for some reason I couldn't get it to spray on well at all. It was leaving a lot of overspray that was sort of chalky and messy on everything, and so I had to thin it down slightly, which it doesn't recommend doing. But I ended up getting a good result. It might not be worth all of the extra work, so you might just want to stop with just a nice good paint job with the paint and forget about the clear coat. Now that just about wraps up the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. The tractor's starting to come back together. I'm not assembling it yet. I want to let the paint completely harden before starting to work with it at all. And I also need to paint the frame and all of the gray pieces that are on this tractor that have heat damage as well. So in the next video, I'm going to be taking all of that, sanding it down, prepping it, and painting it all with the Kubota gray. And then after that video, we'll start assembling. So stay tuned for next week. You'll see how this turns out with all the gray paint. And then the following week, we're going to be putting this tractor back together. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, hit that like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And let me know down in the comment section if you think this is going to turn out alright. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.